Good afternoon. My name is Gregory, and today we will be looking at Chapter 3 of the New Headway Plus elementary book. The title of this unit is The World of Work. And the sorts of things we will be looking at are present simple, he, she, it, questions and negatives, jobs, and what time is it? So to start with, speak to your partner and tell your partner, my father is and give his job. In this case, my father is a doctor. My mother is whatever, and my brother is. And then let your partner tell you about the people in his family. My father is whatever, my mother is my brother is my sister is and so on. Just to get you started. Now, this section of the unit, 3 jobs, present simple, he, she, it. And we are going to hear about Alison, her job, and Bob, his job. Listen to the text and read along, and then we will answer some questions afterwards.
Unit 3, Tape Script 3.1.
Alison is a scientist. She comes from Cambridge in England, but now she lives in Switzerland. She works 3 days a week at the Institute of Molecular Biology in Geneva. She speaks 3 languages, English, French, and German. She's married and has a daughter. She likes skiing in winter and going for walks in summer.
Bob is a doctor. He's English, but now he lives in Australia, in the small town of Alice Springs. He isn't an ordinary doctor. He's a flying doctor. Every day, from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m., he speaks to people on his radio. Then he flies to help them. He works 16 hours a day, non-stop, but he loves his job. He isn't married. He has no free time.
Okay. Now, first of all, what I would like you to do is to underline all the verbs in the text, in both texts. For instance, is, comes. What is the last letter of these verbs? And practice saying the verbs and read the text aloud. So now, go through the text and underline all the verbs. Done? Let us check. Let us see if you got them all. Comes, flies, lives, loves, is, has. Works, likes, speaks. You'll notice that the S in these words is pronounced Z, as in comes, flies. And the final S in these words is pronounced as S, works, likes. Complete the sentences about Alison and Bob. They have done the first one for you. She's a scientist. He's a doctor. Now have a look at the rest of them and fill in the blanks. Alison comes from England. Bob, blank, blank, England too. Go through all of them and complete the blanks. Fill in the blanks. Done? Let's check your answers. She's a scientist, he's a doctor. We did that one. Alison comes from England, Bob comes from England too. She lives in a big city, but he lives in a small town. She works 3 days a week. He works 16 hours a day non-stop. Non-stop means he works 16 hours without a break, without stopping. Number 5. He speaks to sick people on his radio. She speaks 3 languages. Number 6. She loves her job, and he loves his job too. TOO means the same as also. Number 7. She has a daughter. He isn't married. And number 8. She likes skiing and goes for walks in her free time. He never has free time. So those are 2 very interesting jobs that these people have, and it seems like they keep them very busy, especially Bob, who doesn't even have time to get married and have a family. Okay, let's listen and check our answers.
Tape script 3.2. 1.
She's a scientist. He's a doctor.
2.
Alison comes from England. Bob comes from England too.
3.
She lives in a big city, but he lives in a small town.
4.
She works 3 days a week. He works 16 hours a day non-stop.
5.
He speaks to sick people on his radio. She speaks 3 languages.
6.
She loves her job, and he loves his job too.
7.
She has a daughter. He isn't married.
8.
She likes skiing and going for walks in her free time. He never has free time.
Okay, let's move along. Read the information about Philippe. Here is Philippe, and here is his information. His job is a waiter, country France, city is Paris. His place of work is in the center of Paris. His languages that he speaks are French and a little English. Married? Yes. Family? 2 sons. Free time? Reading and playing football. Now, talk about Philippe. For instance, Philippe is a waiter. He comes from France, and he, what in Paris? He works, where? He speaks French and he has, he likes. Work with a partner and complete these sentences about Philippe. All the information you want is contained here on this card. Okay, let us check your answers. Philippe is a waiter. He comes from France and he lives in Paris. He works in the center of Paris. He speaks French and a little English. He's married and he has 2 sons. In his free time, he likes reading and playing football. This one was, he has 2 sons. Did you get all of those? If you did, very well done. Now for a writing exercise, I'd like you just to write a short paragraph about a friend or relative. Use this as the format that you want to use. So you will give your friend's name, say where he's from, where does he work, and his family, and so on and so on. And when you're finished, read your paragraph to your partner and let your partner read his paragraph to you. Next section. What does she do? Questions and negatives. Read and listen. Complete the answers. Listen and complete the gaps here. Fill in the gaps.
Tape script 3.3.
Where does Alison come from?
Cambridge, in England.
What does she do?
She's a scientist.
Does she speak French?
Yes, she does.
Does she speak Spanish?
No, she doesn't.
Okay, these are all questions. And the one negative is, does she speak Spanish? And the answer was, no, she doesn't. Let us check that. Where does Alison come from? Cambridge, in England. What does she do? She's a scientist. Does she speak French? Yes, she does. Does she speak Spanish? No, she doesn't. Grammar spot. What does she, he do? Equals the same as saying, what's her or his job? So if you speak to somebody, you can say, what do you do? Or, what is your job? It has the same meaning. Complete these sentences with the correct form of come. Positive. She, from England. Negative. She, blank blank, from America. And question, where blank she blank from? Well, that would be, she comes from England, and the negative would be, she doesn't come from America. And the question would be, where does she come from? Let's check. There it is. Positive, she comes from England. Negative, she doesn't come from America. And the question, where does she come from? Notice the pronunciation of does and doesn't. Does he speak French? Yes, he does. No, he doesn't. Let us have a look at the grammar reference on page 126, 3.1. Present simple, he, she, it. The present simple expresses a fact which is always true, or true for a long time. That's the present simple. For instance, he comes from England, from Switzerland. She works in a bank. It also expresses a habit. She goes skiing in winter. He never has a holiday. Positives. He, she, it lives in Australia. He, she, it doesn't live in France. Doesn't means, or is abbreviation for does not. Questions. Where does he, she, it live? And then we have yes, no questions. Does he, she, it live in Australia? Yes, he does. In France? No, she doesn't. Yes, it does. Those are the short answers, which if the question starts with does, a positive would be yes, he, she, it does, or no, he, she, it doesn't. Okay? Now, see if you can complete these gaps and complete the questions and the answers. Where blank Bob blank from? England. What blank he blank? Fill in those blanks with does, doesn't, do. Right, now let's check your answers. Where does Bob come from? England. What does he do? He's a doctor. Does he fly to help people? Yes, he does. Does he speak French and German? No, he doesn't. Now, listen and check.
Tape script 3.4. 1.
Where does Bob come from?
England.
2.
What does he do?
He's a doctor.
3.
Does he fly to help people?
Yes, he does.
4.
Does he speak French and German?
No, he doesn't.
Okay. Write similar questions about Philippe, the waiter, and ask and answer the questions with a partner. So you could use the same things. Where does Philippe come from? What does he do? He's a waiter, and so on. Work with your partner and ask and answer the questions, and then change over so the one you both have a chance to ask and both have a chance to answer the questions. Let's check your answers. Where does Philippe come from? Paris. What does he do? He's a waiter. Does he work in the center of Paris? Yes, he does. Does he speak German? No, he doesn't. How did you do? Did you ask good questions and get the answers? Now, read the information about Mona or Mark. For Mona, we read that she is an interpreter. Her country is Jordan. Her city that she lives in is New York. Her place of work is at the United Nations. Languages that she speaks: Arab, English, and French. Family: she's married with 2 sons, and in her free time, she enjoys reading. Mark is a journalist for the BBC. The BBC is the British Broadcasting Corporation. His country is England. City is Moscow. His place of work in an office. His languages are English, Russian, and German. Family: he is married to an American and he has 3 daughters. In his free time, he enjoys skiing. Now, talk to your partner about Mona first, and tell your partner about Mona. For instance, Mona's an interpreter. She comes from Jordan. She lives in New York. And give all the information about Mona to your partner. And then change around and let your partner give you information about Mona. And then do the same about Mark, the same with Mark. Mark is a journalist for the BBC. He comes from England and he works in Moscow, etc., and so on. Talk to your partner about Mark and about Mona, and then let your partner talk to you about them. Remember, the more you practice using your English, the better it will become and the more confident you will become. Then write questions about Mona or Mark. Or in our case, write questions about both of them, Mona and Mark. Where come from? What would that question be? I give the answer. Where does Mona come from? Where live? What do? Where work? Does he, she speak French, German? What in her free time? Skiing. How many children? Complete those questions. And then let's check what you've written. Where does Mona Mark come from? Where does Mona or Mark live? What does Mona or Mark do? Where does Mona and Mark work? Does Mona Mark speak French, German? Where does Mona Mark do in her free time? Does Mona Mark go skiing? And how many children does Mona Mark have? Did you get all of those? If you did, well done. And now ask and answer these questions with your partner. Each take turns asking and answering. And then ask your partner the same questions about a friend or a relative. And then let your partner ask you questions about a friend or a relative. Don't skip these exercises. I really advise you to do them because they are really beneficial and will really help you with your English. Listening and pronunciation. Listen to the sentences about Philippe, Mona and Mark. Correct the wrong sentences. Okay, they've done one for you. Philippe comes from Paris. Yes, that's right. Philippe lives in London. No, he doesn't. He lives in Paris. Now listen to the other sentences about Philippe, Mona and Mark and correct the incorrect sentences.
Tape script 3.5. 1,
Philippe comes from Paris.
2,
Philippe lives in London.
3,
He works in the centre of Paris.
4,
He speaks English very well.
5,
He's married.
6,
Mona lives and works in New York.
7,
She speaks French and German.
8,
She plays tennis in her free time.
9,
She isn't married.
10,
Mark works in an office in Moscow.
11,
He has 3 sons.
12,
He likes playing football in his free time.
And how did you do? All of the information you want is in the paragraphs that we have read. And if necessary, play this sound bite again and find all the answers. Which are the ones that are not right? Let's check if you got them all. Philippe comes from Paris. Yes, that's right. Philippe lives in London. No, he doesn't. He lives in Paris. He works in the center of Paris. Yes, right. He speaks English very well. No, he doesn't. He speaks a little English. He's married. Right. Mona lives and works in New York. Yes, that's right. She speaks French and German. No, she doesn't. She speaks Arabic, English, and French. She plays tennis in her free time. No, she doesn't. She likes reading. She isn't married. Yes, she is. Mark works in an office in Moscow. Yes, he does. That's right. He has 3 sons. No, he doesn't. He has 3 daughters. He likes playing football in his free time. No, he doesn't. He likes to go skiing. Did you get all of those? If you did, nicely done. And now we have another listening exercise for you. We are going to play a sound file for you, and I want you to make a tick in the square of the sentence that you hear. For instance, the first one will be, he likes his job, or she likes her job. The one that you hear, put a tick in the appropriate block, in the correct block. Let's listen.
Tape script 3.6. 1,
She likes her job.
2,
She loves walking.
3,
He isn't married.
4,
Does he have 3 children?
5,
What does he do?
Did you get them? Let's listen again, this time with the script open. Check your answers.
tape script 3.6. 1,
She likes her job.
2,
She loves walking.
3,
He isn't married.
4,
Does he have 3 children?
5,
What does he do?
Okay, did you get those? If you did, well done. Now, tick the correct sentence. She comes from Japan. She come from Japan. Which one of those is correct? Put a tick in the block of the one that you believe is correct. And then look at the rest of them, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And put a tick in the block of the correct sentence. Number 2, for instance, what do he do in his free time? Or, what does he do in his free time? Have a look at the rest of them and put a tick in the block of the sentence that you believe is correct. Okay, let us check your answers. She comes from Japan. What does he do in his free time? Where does she live? He isn't married. Does she have 2 sons? He doesn't play football. Number 7, she doesn't like pizza. And number 8, what's his address? Get them? Good. Let's move along. Okay, we're going to do some reading and listening now. We're going to be reading about the man with 12 jobs. Can you imagine that? Having 12 jobs that you do every day? Most of us have enough trouble with just one job, don't we? And we're going to read about Thomas McSporran, the man with 12 jobs. He comes from Scotland, and look at the photographs of some of the jobs that he does. Look at those. Now, match a sentence with a photograph. For instance, number 1, he helps in the shop. Which picture would that be, do you think? And the next one, he makes breakfast for the hotel guests. Go through all 8 of these sentences and match them up to A, B, C, D, E, F, G, or H. See if you can identify what job he is doing. You done that? Well, A, what would you say that job is? He's serving breakfast by the looks of it. There, it looks like he's taking someone to school. He's being a chauffeur. And let's check all the answers. See how you did. Number 1 is G. This one, helps in the shop. Number 2, he makes breakfast for hotel guests. A. This one. Number 3 is E. And 3 is he serves petrol. Number 4 is C, and he collects post from the boats. So he's also a postman. Number 5, he drives the children to school. B. That one. 6 is D, which is he delivers the letters. Number 7 is H, which is he has a mug of tea. You can see he's really tired after a long day, isn't he? And 8 is F. He works as an undertaker. An undertaker is a person who buries dead people. Did you manage to match the pictures up? If you did, well done. Now, read about Seamus and answer the questions. Here they tell you all about him. Seamus McSparron is a very busy man. He's 60 years old and he has 12 jobs. He's a postman, a policeman, a fireman, a taxi driver, a school bus driver, a boatman, an ambulance man, an accountant, a petrol attendant, and an undertaker. Also, he and his wife Margaret have a shop and a small hotel. Seamus lives and works on the island of Giga in the west of Scotland. Only 120 people live on Giga, but in summer 150 tourists come by boat every day. Every weekday, Seamus gets up at 6 o'clock and makes breakfast for the hotel guests. At 8 o'clock, he drives the island's children to school. At 9:30, he collects the post from the boat and delivers it to all the houses on the island. He also works as the island's only petrol station. Then he helps Margaret in the shop. He says, Margaret likes being busy too. We never have holidays and we don't like watching television. In the evenings, Margaret makes supper and I do the accounts. At 10 o'clock we have a mug of tea and then we go to bed. Perhaps our life isn't very exciting, but we like it. Well, I think it is a very interesting life that they have. Imagine doing 12 jobs, 12 different jobs every single day. That is quite something. So, answer the questions about Seamus. Where does Seamus live? All the answers are in this passage. How old is he? How many jobs does he have? That one's easy, isn't it? What's his wife's name? What does she do? How many people live on Giga? How many tourists visit Giga in summer? What does Seamus do in the morning? What do he and Margaret do in the evening? All the answers are here. I want you to read through again if need be and answer all 9 questions, please. And to check your answers, there are the answers. He lives on the island of Giga in the north of Scotland. How old is he? He is 60 years old. How many jobs does he have? 12. He has 12 jobs. What's his wife's name? Margaret. His wife's name is Margaret. What does she do? She works in the shop. How many people live on Giga? 120. Or 120 people live on Giga. How many tourists visit Giga in summer? 150. 150 tourists visit Giga in summer. Number 8. What does Seamus do in the morning? He makes breakfast, drives the children to school, collects the post from the boat, and delivers the post to the houses. And number 9, what do he and Margaret do in the evening? Margaret makes supper and Seamus does the accounts. They have a mug of tea and then go to bed. As I say, a very interesting life that the two of them live. And now a listening exercise. Listen to 4 conversations from Seamus's day. Answer each one. After each one, answer these questions. So after each conversation, answer these 3 questions. Is it morning, afternoon, or evening? Who are the people and where are they? And what is Seamus's job? What job is he doing at the time of this conversation? Listen.
Tape script 3.7. 1.
Good afternoon. Can I have 2 ice creams, please?
Chocolate or vanilla?
1 chocolate, 1 vanilla, please.
That's £1.80. Anything else?
No, thank you.
2.
Only 2 letters for you this morning, Mrs. Craig.
Thank you very much, Mr. McSporran. And how's Mrs. McSporran this morning?
Oh, she's very well, thank you. She's busy in the shop.
3.
A mug of tea before bed, my dear.
Oh, yes, please.
Here you are.
Thank you, my dear. I'm very tired this evening.
4.
Hello, Mr. McSporran.
Good morning, boys and girls. Hurry up, we're late.
Can I sit here, Mr. McSporran? No, I want to sit there.
Be quiet, all of you, and sit down.
Okay, did you get those? The time of day is very easy. First one, good afternoon. So clearly the time of day is afternoon. Number 2, he says, only 2 letters for you this morning, Mrs. Craig, so the time must be morning, yes? For number 3, a mug of tea before bed, my dear. Therefore, it must be evening if they're thinking of going to bed. And he actually says, I'm very tired this evening. And number 4, good morning, boys and girls. Therefore, it has to be morning, not so. And who are the people he is speaking to? Where are they? And what job is he doing? Let's check your answers. Conversation 1 is the afternoon. Seamus and a customer in Seamus's shop. And he's being a shopkeeper. That is the job he is doing at that time. Conversation number 2 takes place in the morning. It's Seamus and a woman who lives on the island, and he is being the postman. Number 3, it is evening. Seamus and Mark are talking together, and he's not doing any job, no job. He isn't working. He's relaxing. Number 4 takes place in the morning. Seamus and the school children, and he's being the school bus driver. That is the job he's doing at that time. Now, with all of this information, complete the conversations. Can you remember? Can you complete this, fill in the gaps? Good morning. Can I have 2 ice creams, please? And go through all of these, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and fill in the gaps. Fill in the missing words. And if you have completed that, let us check your answers. Good afternoon. Can I have 2 ice creams, please? Chocolate or vanilla? 1 chocolate, 1 vanilla. That's £1.80. Anything else? No, thank you. Number 2. Only 2 letters for you this morning, Mrs. Craig. Thank you very much, Mr. McSporran. And how's Mrs. McSporran this morning? Oh, she's very well, thank you. She's busy in the shop. Number 3. A mug of tea before bed, my dear. Oh, yes, please. Here you are. Thank you, my dear. I'm very tired this evening. Hello, Mr. McSporran. Good morning, boys and girls. Hurry up, we are late. Can I sit here, Mr. McSporran? No, I want to sit there. Be quiet, all of you, and sit down. Were you able to complete all of those? Could you fill in the missing words? If you did, well done. Then we come to vocabulary and pronunciation. Match a picture with a job in column A. In column A, we have a pilot, an interpreter, a nurse, a chef, an accountant, a journalist, a postman, an architect, and a shop assistant. So match those. I've done the first one for you. Number 1 is D, which is a chef. What job is being done in number 2? Match those all up. And if you're finished, let's check your answers. Number 1 is a chef. Number 2 is a journalist. A journalist is a person who writes articles for newspapers. Number 3 is a pilot. Number 4, an interpreter. Interpreter is a person who translates from one language to another. Number 5 is a nurse. 6, he's a shop assistant. Number 7, he's an architect. And number 7 is an accountant, and number 8 is an architect. And number 9 is a postman. How did you do? Then, match those jobs with those descriptions of the jobs. So a pilot does what? I think we know he flies planes. An interpreter does what? And so on. Go through all of these from A down to I and match it with a description of the job. And if you finished with that, let's check your answers. A pilot flies planes. An interpreter translates things. A nurse looks after people in a hospital. A chef cooks in a restaurant. An accountant looks after money. A journalist writes for a newspaper. A postman delivers letters. An architect designs buildings, and a shop assistant sells things. It would be worthwhile practicing saying these words and their descriptions. Nurse, postman, accountant, shop assistant, architect, pilot. It would be worthwhile to memorize those jobs and the descriptions of them. And this is where our lesson for today comes to an end. I hope you have found it beneficial and useful. I hope you have learned some new things today. And as always, I encourage you to practice what you have learned, practice speaking English, and it'll become easier and easier as you go along. Thank you.